Hey folks, Cam Rogers here on the Cam Rogers Show on this Wednesday morning, February 28th, 2018, episode 71 of the program. We're taking you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We thank you for coming along for the ride here. A fun one at that, and we're going to be talking about the National Football League throughout the hour. A little combine talk. I'm giving you some quarterbacks to watch out for. I'm giving you my 6 top quarterbacks. I'm giving you the number 6 and not like 5 or 3 because I think there are 6 quarterbacks that could go down in the first round of the draft. So I do want to talk about all of them. Then at the 15-minute mark, Rogers Rumors Roundup, edition number 3. I'm giving you the latest news and rumors across the National Football League. And then at the halfway point of the show, top destinations for Case Keenum, followed by top destinations for Teddy Bridgewater. Let me tell you, both lists are different, so you'll have to stay around for both of those segments. And then to wrap up the show, a final word about the ongoing feud between Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell, the latest news surrounding this, and what Jerry Jones is planning on doing in terms of fighting this $2 million request for payment, shall we say. It's kind of not a fine, technically not a fine, but it's a fine in a symbolic sense. Kind of like how the Cowboys should cut Des Bryant in a symbolic sense as well. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Hit me with those comments as well, those reactions. I've got the broadcast literally right here. I can watch you comment as they flow through the screen. So I'll be sure to mention them and we'll show them up on the broadcast as well. Let's get into it. I'm giving you my top 6 quarterbacks to monitor as we go throughout the combine. We'll start off with Sam Darnold, the guy I think will go to the Cleveland Browns number 1 overall. So 6'4", 220, got the prototypical quarterback size here, throws a tight spiral, trusts his arm really well. I think he has fantastic pocket presence too. Solid pre-snap reader, especially in regards to deep ball opportunities. The big storyline with Sam Darnold, and I'll talk about it later in the Rogers Rumors Roundup, he will not be throwing at the Combine, as decided to throw during the Pro Day for USC. So he'll do everything else except the throwing drills. So something to kind of keep an eye on with Sam Darnold, as everybody else around him, the Rosens, the Mayfields, the Allens of the world, will all be throwing at the Combine. So what I like about Sam Darnold, I mentioned the tight spiral, trusts his arm well, good pocket presence, keeps his eyes downfield under pressure, can evade sacks pretty darn well too, so something to kind of stack up there in terms of the positives for him. He's got good poise and leadership. Despite mistakes, that happen throughout his college career, he definitely showed an ability to be a leader despite those turnovers that he had. Right? 20 turnovers total in his last 20 games at USC. It kind of reminds me of Andrew Luck, and I want to know if people kind of buy into that. The fact that you've seen Andrew Luck throw interceptions before, have turnovers, etc., but he always bounces back up, always claps his hands, has really good positivity even after something that's adverse, like an interception. That's kind of what Sam Darnold does too, and kind of acts in the same way as Andrew Luck. And I think that's really good for his stock and really bad for Josh Rosen, who kind of has this, I guess, negative tag on him that he's not a great leader, not a great character guy, kind of an odd person. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold, that positive guy, despite the interceptions, the turnovers, he can bounce right back and go into the huddle the next series and be fine, kind of like an Andrew Luck. So I think that's something that I really like about Sam Darnold. And like I mentioned, the problem, the knock, it's the turnovers. Has a tendency to muscle throws downfield with his arm, doesn't really drive off his lower body as much as I would like to see. So something there that he can work on in terms of the mechanics. His decision-making also needs to be improved going into the second level here. But Jameis Winston had the same deal, right? He had turnover issues going into the NFL draft, and, well, he's panning out okay for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has dealt with his fair share of injuries. But I don't think Sam Darnold will go any lower than number 3 overall. I think he goes number 1 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. Here's what one AFC executive said about Darnold. He's still the most complete quarterback in this draft with the best makeup to be a good pro. That's all I need to hear to say Sam Darnold is your #1 quarterback to watch at the Combine. But again, he will not be throwing. Let's go to quarterback number 2, Josh Rosen. Makes sense he goes to the Giants in my eyes, but we shall see. He also actually recently refuted the report that he said he didn't want to play for the Browns. So yeah, when you're a quarterback prospect and you have to kind of fend off bad PR already and you're not even in the NFL, probably not a good sign for Josh Rosen. Look, I think the Big Apple would be a good spot for him kind of to sit beneath Eli Manning, learn from him, and then the Giants and Pat Shurmur can kind of ease Josh Rosen into that starting role. Scouts have said he's a bit of an odd personality, so maybe it'll take some time to kind of work through him and see what his strengths are from the mental side of things. But he is the best coordinated quarterback in the draft in my eyes. Elite footwork and balance, has that quarterback look when he delivers the football. So it's all there on the field. Completed 63% of his passes when blitzed in 2017 as well. So he knows how to face pressure. He can stand in there, deliver a football pretty darn well. He also didn't have great help around him at UCLA. His offensive line struggled in pass protection. His receivers accounted for 31 drops. So he knows how to throw receivers open, and trust me, he had to work really, really hard last year to do that. So that's a really good trait for him. Great on the back shoulder toss as well. I don't think his arm is as strong as a Darnold or a Josh Allen. I think he needs to improve his deep ball a little bit. Also can struggle early against pressure, so pressure up the middle and kind of that initial rush. But here's what one NFL executive said about Rosen. He's definitely talented. Nobody questions that. But he's going to have to get grown men to buy into him as a leader. That is not a given. So that is where I am concerned. I think a lot of NFL scouts, GMs, etc. are a little concerned about this as well. Can Josh Rosen take that QB1 role and then run with it? Not just on the field, but also off the field, in the locker room, as a leader. Can he relish that? And I think it's going to take some coaching. I do believe that. He's going to have to get coached in terms of his ability on the field, but also off the field. Can't say that about Sam Darnold. I don't think he needs much coaching in terms of his mental side of things, in terms of his leadership. But for Josh Rosen, I think he might need to. All right, folks. Who will be the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft? Hit me with those comments in the comments section. And as we're on Facebook Live, I will be tracking them as they flow in. And, of course, on YouTube, hit me with those comments, too. I'll be looking back at them as they flow in as well. Let's get to quarterback number 3 here. Baker Mayfield. If you want excitement, this guy brings it. If the Broncos lose out on Keenum and Cousins, I think Mayfield is an option at number 5 overall. The key for him this week at the Combine: prove you're not Johnny Manziel. All right, so as he conducts these interviews, etc., he needs to prove maturity. He can't shy away from being a competitor. That's not what I'm asking him to do. But I think he needs to show that, look, GM or coach or whatever, I'm not Johnny Manziel. I'm a new person, or I'm a different person, and there's just no parallel between us two. So I think that's the main task for Baker Mayfield this week. We know that he's a talented player. We know what he can do on the football field. And I think some teams may buy into the Baker Mayfield competitiveness and fiery mentality like a Denver Broncos. Other teams may not buy into that, such as a Buffalo Bills, etc. So Mayfield definitely has that competitive edge over Rosen and maybe even Sam Darnold. Completed 53% of his throws of 21-plus yards over the last 2 years. Great touch pass over linebackers in coverage. In terms of grit and having a chip on his shoulder, I think Mayfield brings it. Minor weakness, and I'm saying minor, some people are saying it's major, is his size. But we've seen big-time, big-armed quarterbacks struggle before. So it's never a given either way that a small quarterback is going to struggle and a tall, big-armed quarterback is going to be effective in the National Football League. So I'm not buying too much into that weakness that he is undersized. I do think it's a minor one, but not a huge one. He may also be a little scheme dependent, so he'll need the right coordinator to mold him into the quarterback that that team really envisions him to be. So I'm hearing in terms of comps. Doug Flutie, a rich man's Jeff Garcia. I don't really know what the perfect comp is for Baker Mayfield, but I do know that he's a unique talent, brings a lot of intensity, and if you want to energize a fan base, you draft Baker Mayfield. He's my number 3 quarterback to watch at the Combine. Let's get to number 4 here, Josh Allen. And poor Josh Allen. I mean, either scouts love him or hate him. He's going to be the ultimate boom or bust prospect for an NFL team. I'm here to give it to you straight. Here's the deal on Josh Allen. He's big, 6'5", 233. He's got the arm strength and the talent. The tape shows that. Here's the other side of things. He's also inaccurate at times. His completion percentage, quite frankly, sucked. Look at it right there, 56.3% in 2017. That ain't good. Never had a completion rate higher than 56% in either season as a starter. He's a boom or bust quarterback. If you're a part of a team's leadership and you have a QB cemented as a starter in the short term, but would like to kind of groom this guy, I think it makes sense. But if you're looking for a quarterback to plug in week 1 in 2018, i.e. the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills perhaps, I don't know if Josh Allen is your guy. But if you can rely on a bridge quarterback in the short term, groom Josh Allen, and then let him be your franchise quarterback, that's where I see the best path. So maybe the Cardinals could work if they bring in a free agent quarterback and then draft Josh Allen if he somehow tumbles to 15 overall, or if the Cardinals trade up. But Josh Allen is one of the more polarizing players heading into the NFL draft. And so with that, we have a reaction poll. Would you draft Josh Allen? Give me a heart for yes, a like for no. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment with the heart or the like respectively. Would certainly like to hear your thoughts. Getting a lot of comments flowing in already, which I always like to see. And Isaac chiming in. Speaking of boom or bust, what about Lamar Jackson? Isaac, we love transitions here at Chat Sports and the Cam Rogers Show. So with that, let's get to Lamar at number 5. So let's talk about him, Isaac. So he's a playmaker, can hit the home runs. But my question for you, can that translate to the NFL level? He's got a nice release. The ball comes out with the flick. It's really nice to watch on tape. He's smart, willing to take sacks, which is important in the NFL, not trying to do too much. I think it's refreshing to see quarterbacks coming out of college that, will, throw the football away or take a sack and not try to do too much. There are other quarterback prospects that perhaps do that. They don't take the sack in. They try to airmail a ball downfield, etc. So his frame, thin. I wonder about his durability taking big-time NFL hits, but maybe it could be a Russell Wilson type of situation where he never takes big hits because he's always eluding the rushers. But I don't really want to rely on that. That's probably not a good way to go about it. But Lamar, the big-time knock, inaccuracy. Has a tendency to overthrow his receivers, leading to interceptions by safeties. So he's going to have to work on that. But perhaps the Bills or Jaguars make a run at him. I'm reading a lot of ties between Lamar Jackson and the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite the fact that the Jags have already locked up their quarterback in Blake Bortles. Bring in Lamar Jackson. If he's there at the lower part of that first round, I don't know if he will be, but Lamar Jackson certainly will go in the first round of the NFL draft. He might be the most fun to watch at the Combine, by the way. We know he's dynamic, but now let's see how the measurements shake out, and I'm really interested to see how it all happens during the Combine and then where he gets drafted in the NFL draft. Chris chiming in. He would be mediocre at best in the NFL. Chris, a lot of people feel that way about Lamar Jackson. Hit me in the comments section. Which quarterback do you like the most? I certainly appreciate your opinion and appreciate you watching the Cam Rogers Show. Let's get into quarterback number 6. Probably not going to be selected in the first round, but I put him here because there is the potential. Mason Rudolph. Big fella, 6'5", 230. Stands tall in the pocket, too, which is something I like to see when watching tape on quarterbacks. He's a fearless thrower, attacks opportunities in between linebackers and safeties. You need that touch to really do that effectively. And Rudolph, he's a play-action kind of quarterback, throws well downfield. Finished the year with a quarterback rating of 112.2 on third downs, second among all passers in the nation, according to Pro Football Focus. And I do have my concerns in terms of throwing the football with velocity. He can airmail it a little bit. You know, the ball can float. I'd like to see him drive off his back foot a little better. And I've seen too many of those system quarterbacks struggle to make it in the league. And I'm wondering if Mason Rudolph could end up being that kind of guy. I think he has the potential to be an average starter, maybe even slightly above average starter. Whatever happens, when he plays in the NFL, he's going to need a good supporting cast. At his peak, he will not be a 45, attempt thrower in a game, a 50 attempt thrower in a game, and putting the team on his back. That's not who he is. He relies on the play action. He likes a good run game. So maybe a Buffalo, for example, where you have a good offensive line there. I know they have to address the center position with Eric Wood retiring, but you got LaShawn McCoy, a big-bodied receiver, and Kelvin Benjamin. Maybe they get a Martavis Bryant via the trade, etc. So you need a good cast around Mason Rudolph for him to really be an effective quarterback at the NFL level. He checks in at number 6 in terms of my rankings. And, it's interesting because a lot of these guys I can point to and really pick out a specific strength, and they're all different among all 6 of these guys. Like Sam Darnold, the leadership is there. Josh Rosen, the pure arm talent is there. The footwork. Baker Mayfield, that grit, that competitiveness. Josh Allen, his ability to chuck the football down the field. Lamar Jackson, he's that home run hitter. Can be a little inaccurate at times, but he's dynamic. He's a playmaker. And then Mason Rudolph with the proper run game, offensive line. He could be a good quarterback, maybe a little bit above average, if he is in the proper system on that offensive side. All right, so my top quarterbacks at the Combine. Here's a look. Sam Darnold at number 1, Josh Rosen at 2, Baker Mayfield at number 3, Josh Allen at number 4, Lamar Jackson at 5, and Mason Rudolph at number 6. The NFL Draft on the horizon, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. It's time for the Rogers Rumors Roundup. I'm getting you set with all of the latest NFL news and rumors here. So let's get into nugget of information number 1. Case Keenum. Is the franchise tag coming for him? Looks like no. So Ian Rappaport reported that the Vikings aren't expected to tag Case Keenum. That, according to sources close to the team's thinking. This is hardly surprising considering Case Keenum had an out-of-nowhere season in 2017. And look, guys, the tag would cost $23 million approximately. Do you really want to pay a flash-in-the-pan $23 million? I don't think so. And if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you can probably get into the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. You have the money to do it. The Vikings have $49 million in projected cap space, which is more than enough to make a run at free agency, and more specifically Kirk Cousins. And, Keenum is expected to have a market, including the Buffalo Bills, the Jets, the Broncos. I'll talk about the top 5 teams for him later in the show. But I really don't know what the market will be exactly. Like, in terms of monetary amounts here, I really don't know how much he's going to get in comparison to, say, a Teddy Bridgewater or a Kirk Cousins or a Sam Bradford. In fact, there's a bit of uncertainty in terms of all 3 of these free agent quarterbacks coming out of Minnesota in terms of how much money they will actually get. Now, Case Keenum. What team will sign him this offseason? Let me know in the comments section. I see Rio is commenting, Chris is commenting, Cliff as well, Melvin joining the show. Let me know. I would really be interested to hear what you guys think. Here's the deal with Case. I don't think he is a long-term answer anywhere, but he is a player that is coming off a solid 2017 campaign. And my question is it more to do with the system in Minnesota with Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator, or was it more to do with Case Keenum absolutely figuring it out? I'm leaning towards the former rather than the latter. But surely let me know who you think Case Keenum will sign with this offseason. He'll find a starting opportunity, I think, but will he be a good quarterback in 2018? That is my big-time question mark for him. So from one Viking free agent to another, rumor number 2, is there a tag coming for Teddy Bridgewater? Well, it looks like there isn't. Ian Rappaport also saying that the Vikings are expected to let Teddy walk into free agency and test the open waters, and with Sam Bradford likely not coming back, the Vikings are without a quarterback. So they're very much in the, hey, let's go out and try to find a guy, sweepstakes kind of thing. Like, it's Kirk Cousins, it could be the draft, it could be all these potentiality here. So Bridgewater, of course, was their 2014 first-round pick, led the Vikings to a division title in 2015. This is more surprising to me than the Case Keenum situation. Now, I didn't think the franchise tag was going to happen for Teddy Bridgewater. That wouldn't make much sense. Why would you pay the guy $16 million or $23 million if, you know, he barely played in 2017? But I thought maybe he would get a 1-year, 2-year, prove-it kind of deal where the Vikings can finally get their answer. Is Teddy Bridgewater our franchise quarterback? It seems as though they don't want to find out. And I think that is a poor decision on their part. So I guess the Vikings leadership finds Teddy expendable. The rumors suggest the Vikings have the funds and the interest to make a run at one Kirk Cousins. And speaking of which, let's get to him, because I'm hearing that Denver could be ready to shell out some big-time money for this guy. So Yahoo Sports recently put out a thought on this. Charles Robinson proposed that the Broncos will likely have to offer Cousins $25 million per year with $80 million guaranteed. So people may point to Garoppolo's contract as somewhat market setting, but he's not getting the type of guaranteed money that Cousins is going to get, guys. Stafford actually leads the NFL in terms of total guaranteed dollars at $60 million. Kirk Cousins could blow that out of the water. And you see that $80 million mark, I think that's where it's going to be. Wherever he signs, a Cleveland, Buffalo, heck, Minnesota, Denver, New York, etc. I think it's going to be around that amount. Now, Denver's going to have to free up some salary cap space here. They're going to have to cut Aqib Talib or Chris Harris, or maybe Bradley Roby. I don't know. But they're going to have to cut one of those corners to give them some salary cap relief. I do want you to predict the team that will sign Kirk Cousins. Let me know in the comments section. Cousins could far and away be the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League after free agency is all said and done. My understanding is the Vikings and Broncos are going to make the hardest pushes for Kirk Cousins, with the Jets very, very close behind them. Cleveland Browns also in the running as well. I think this is going to be really fun to watch. Like, just hearing about all the rumors right now is fun, and reporting on it is fun. But once we actually get to the new league year, that's when things are going to pick up like crazy. And I look forward to talking about who Kirk Cousins actually signs with. But Denver, I think that is the most likely scenario in my eyes there. So we'll keep an eye on Kirk Cousins perhaps going to the Denver Broncos. All right. Chris Ivory was recently cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So is he headed to the Buffalo Bills or Cleveland Browns? He visited with the Bills on Monday, the Browns yesterday. And Chris Ivory's release was kind of part of this Jacksonville Jaguars attempt to free up salary cap space to re-sign one of their premier players. I'll get to that in a matter of moments. But for Chris Ivory, well, he's a solid backup running back, and, you know, he can show some flashes as a number 1 RB as well. Buffalo has 3 running backs set to be free agents, Tolbert, Tawan Jones, and Cadet as well. So if Buffalo wants to let all those guys walk and then bring in a Chris Ivory to back up LaShawn McCoy, who, by the way, has a tendency to show up on the injury report with hamstring injuries and all this stuff. So would be a nice signing for Buffalo. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, it could happen where Isaiah Crowell walks into free agency and doesn't come back. So maybe Chris Ivory comes into Cleveland, be's that early down running back, and you got Duke Johnson, and heck, bring in a Saquon Barkley at number 4 overall, thanks to the Houston Texans, and you have a pretty solid running back core there, along with Sam Darnold at the quarterback position or Kirk Cousins. I'm thinking all hypotheticals right now. But Chris Ivory, he's doing his tour, if you will, visiting with teams, and I'm sure he'll have a decision pretty darn soon. So that's the latest with Chris. Speaking of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a decision to make with one Allen Robinson. He is the priority at this juncture. Why is that? One, they have extended Blake Bortles. That is all set, done. Chris Ivory released. That freed up $12.6 million in the salary cap region, and the franchise tag would cost $16 million if the Jaguars go that route with Allen Robinson. Robinson has been a part of several free agency rumors, it seems, for the past few weeks, and I think it would be a very smart decision by the Jaguars to re-sign Allen Robinson, because are you really going to rely on D.D. Westbrook and Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns to kind of, or at least one of them, emerge as that #1 wide receiver? I don't think they can. And so I think you have to bring back Allen Robinson, because you got to give Blake Bortles the most help you possibly can. And I'm not putting anything against Blake Bortles, but he wasn't all that great during the regular season in 2017. He had pretty good postseason, which is very promising for me, and I'm sure for Jaguars fans. But bringing back Allen Robinson should and is the priority for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but $16 million is a really, really tough price tag, especially for a guy coming off an ACL injury. He barely played in 2017, so Allen Robinson staying put in Jacksonville, something to monitor there. And then finally, we have Michael Crabtree. Will he stay with the Oakland Raiders? Yes, he will. So reports suggest that the Raiders are expected to not release Crabtree, and trust me, it's very tempting. $7.7 million saved if they do cut Crabtree. No dead money there. As you see his stats from 2017, 58 receptions, 618 yards, and 8 touchdowns. This according to The Athletic, by the way. Not the season you really wanted from Crabtree last year, but the Oakland Raiders as a team struggled, so you can't put it all on Crabtree, but he did have his fair share of drops, also got into a rift with Aqib Talib, and with John Gruden now the head coach, you had to wonder, well, is he going to make some changes, cut Michael Crabtree, perhaps Sean Smith, Marshawn Lynch? A lot of opportunity there for some turnover with the Oakland Raiders, because they're not in the best salary cap position. If you look at the rankings, not the best for the Oakland Raiders. They're towards the bottom of the list. So maybe they cut Marshawn Lynch or Sean Smith instead of Michael Crabtree, because the report suggests that Crabtree is remaining with the Oakland Raiders there. All right, that's your Rodgers Rumors Roundup, ladies and gentlemen. I am Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. You are watching The Cam Rogers Show on this Wednesday morning, final day of February. Can you believe tomorrow is the start of March? Really crazy stuff. All right, so I talked about Case Keenum and Teddy Bridgewater earlier. Let's get into my top 5 destinations for Case Keenum. We'll do Teddy Bridgewater after that. Let's get into destination number 5 for Case Keenum, and stay with me here, the New Orleans Saints. So, my reasoning. Drew Brees, free agent, who knows, could walk and head to another team, and then the Saints need a quarterback. That's probably not going to happen, though. Brees is going to stay. He's going to be the quarterback for the Saints. But backup quarterback Chase Daniel is a pending free agent, and you got to wonder if he is going to perhaps sign with another team. So the Saints could use a reliable backup quarterback here. The problem may be the price tag. Case Keenum is probably going to have a pretty high number in his head that he wants to negotiate with, because why wouldn't you? Supply and demand, people. The guy is coming off a fantastic 2017 season. Case Keenum is not going to be negotiating for a backup spot. But let's say teams out there don't want to really sign him or give him the amount of money that he is really asking for to be a starting quarterback. Then he may have to look towards a backup kind of role. And I think it would be really interesting to see if the New Orleans Saints bring this guy in. Drew Brees, 39 years old. But here's the bottom line. My assumption is Keenum likely won't swallow his pride here and he's going to want a starting position. So I got the Saints at number 5 for a reason. As we go down the list here, it gets more and more likely. But the New Orleans Saints do check in at number 5 as a potential destination for Case Keenum. Let's go to number 4 now. The New York Giants. Could a reunion with head coach Pat Shurmur go down? Hey, I'm saying there's a chance. And look, Keenum had a career year last year. A lot had to do with offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, now the head coach of the Giants, of course. Geno Smith is slated to be a free agent, and it seems like his priorities are debating whether or not the earth is flat rather than re-signing with the Giants. And Davis Webb, well, stinks. So the Giants need a quality backup quarterback behind Eli Manning. And oh, by the way, they need another quarterback perhaps to kind of teach a Josh Rosen, a Baker Mayfield, a Sam Darnold throughout the season next year. So that would certainly help if you have Eli and Case to kind of help mold a rookie quarterback, because the Giants are probably going to go with a rookie quarterback in the draft. And so it would be a good opportunity for that youngster to learn from Case Keenum and Eli Manning at the same time. We know Eli is the Iron Man. The guy doesn't miss a game unless Ben McAdoo coaches, of course, then Geno Smith starts. But it'd be an interesting signing. I really do believe that. And the Giants have around $24 million in salary cap space, so they're going to have to probably let that grow a little bit by making some cuts, maybe a Brandon Marshall, etc. Again, can Keenum derail the momentum he created last season and be a backup? That's my main question here. Unfortunately, I can't read people's minds, and I don't think Case Keenum actually believes that he's worthy of being a backup quarterback, but maybe he wants to go to the Big Apple, cash in a check, and be a backup for Eli Manning. Who knows? But the Giants are there at number 4. Now let's get into some starting opportunities here as we check in with number 3, the Denver Broncos. Let me preface this discussion here with saying that Kirk Cousins is priority number 1. So if they miss out on Kirk Cousins, then maybe Denver looks to Case Keenum here. So first of all, looking at the quarterbacks for Denver last year, Brock the Lobster Osweiler, Trevor Siemian, who apparently is on the trade block, and Paxton Lynch. Tempting QB options right there. Said nobody ever. So the Broncos, let's say they miss out on Kirk, they look towards free agency, they bring in a Case Keenum. Now, I'm thinking this could work. I think it would be a nice fit with the talented receivers that the Broncos have. Now, there have been rumblings that maybe they would cut Emmanuel Sanders or Demaryius Thomas. But let's say they both stay. There's still a solid running back core, too, with C.J. Anderson and company. And I think Denver actually goes with a rookie running back via the draft as well. So things are trending in the right direction there. So I think Keenum would be a nice pickup here for offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave, too. Musgrave is fairly known for designing systems to a quarterback's strengths, and I think he will do that with Case Keenum. As we, of course, want your thoughts. What team will sign Case Keenum this offseason? Let me know in the comments section. Jay agrees with me. There you go. I can see him with the Broncos. Hey, that's what I'm saying, Jay. I got Denver at number 3. I think it'd be a nice fit with the offensive coordinator there, a little Kubiak influence as well. I think Keenum would be pretty good in play action, too. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see. Mitchell Wren's little stat for us on the Denver Broncos quarterbacks last year. 19 touchdowns, 22 interceptions, ... gross. Yes, indeed, gross. That's actually better than my TD to interception ratio from intramural quarterbacking, but I digress. The Denver Broncos check in at number 3. Let's get to number 2 now, the Buffalo Bills. Bills Mafia, rejoice. Do you want Case Keenum on your team? Well, you know, they will very much be in a market for a quarterback, and I don't think Case Keenum can win games on his own. I think that's, you know, reality. That's a fact. I don't think anybody out there will argue that Keenum can win games by himself. And the Bills can provide the help needed for Keenum to be successful. Like I mentioned earlier in the program, solid offensive line. You got Richie Incognito, Cordy Glenn, even Vlad Dukas played pretty well. Eric Wood, that's the concern at center. But good O-line there, especially in run blocking. You got LaShawn McCoy still. Maybe a Chris Ivory, too, because he just visited with the Buffalo Bills. So maybe they sign him. Big-bodied receiver, Kelvin Benjamin. Perhaps the Bills go with the wide receiver via the draft as well. So the pieces are all there for Case Keenum to be successful with the Buffalo Bills. So I think the setup is there. The question for me is the interest there from the Bills side of things. Would they prefer a Sam Bradford, or obviously they prefer a Kirk Cousins? I think they'll very much be in the Kirk Cousins hunt as well. But let's say they miss out on Kirk. Would they rather stick with Tyrod over Case Keenum, or would they rather go with Bradford, as I mentioned, or maybe they just want to go to a rookie quarterback? Because there have been rumblings here where they're going to be trading up to grab a Josh Rosen, a guy they really, really like. So many different avenues here for the Buffalo Bills, and it looks like Tyrod Taylor is going to be trade bait, and I'll talk a little bit more about him when I talk about Teddy Bridgewater as well, but I'd expect Buffalo to explore Sam Bradford, explore Kirk Cousins, maybe Case Keenum. I have the Buffalo Bills at number 2. Rio chiming in. Nobody needs Case Keenum more than Arizona. Just saying, they have 0 quarterbacks. Again, you commenters are fantastic with the transitions. Let's show the graphic. We got the Cardinals at number 1. And Rio, I think it happens. I'm honest with you guys here. Their number 1 quarterback right now is a practice squad guy. Barkley's a free agent. Stanton is a free agent. Carson Palmer is retired. See you later. So what are the incentives here for Case Keenum? Number 1, offensive coordinator Mike McCoy. He gets a lot of flack, but I think he's a really good offensive mind. Not a good head coach, but a good offensive mind, and I think he'd do a good job in terms of coaching up Case Keenum. Incentive number 2, and it's a little weird, but the warm weather. I mean, you can't look past that. He's playing in the big toaster in Arizona, and he's playing in friendly confines as well. So I think it makes sense. I mean, that was part of the narrative when Peyton Manning was looking for a team, so why not for Case Keenum? And oh, by the way, David Johnson is coming back. So you have an elite top 4, maybe top 3 running back coming back, hopefully healthy 100%. And you have Larry Fitzgerald, a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, remaining with the Arizona Cardinals as well. Now, the Cardinals have to improve the wide receiving core outside of Larry. They have a few free agents in that column at that position, and maybe they go to the draft, free agency, etc. I could see them actually go to free agency and pick up a couple of cheap guys, maybe a Moncrief or Paul Richardson, which would be a pretty good move for Arizona. So I think it's there. I think it makes sense, and I actually think it's going to happen. I talked about it in my bold predictions a few episodes ago that Case Keenum is going to sign with the Arizona Cardinals. I just think it's the best fit for him. And Steve Wilks, he really wants to be active in free agency, and I think he's going to have to be, because Arizona is selecting number 15 overall in the NFL draft. What does that mean? Well, they're going to miss out on the Bakers and the Joshes, probably Allen and Rosen and Sam Darnold. So with that, do you want to cement Lamar Jackson or Mason Rudolph as your Week 1 2018 starter? I don't think so, and I think maybe you draft one of them. But being in no man's land here at number 15 overall, I'd expect the Cardinals to go ahead and grab Case Keenum. So the Cards' offensive line, I think, needs a lot of work. But again, Fitzgerald, David Johnson, the warm weather, I think it all sets up pretty nicely. Mike McCoy, the offensive coordinator there as well. So top 5 destinations for Case Keenum. There you go. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. I am Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. There's the rundown for Case Keenum. I am now looking at the top destinations for Teddy Bridgewater, because, of course, he is likely going to walk into free agency. Here's a look at what is still to come here in the program. Again, final word later today, Jerry Jones versus Roger Goodell. What is the latest with that saga? I'll let you know. Stay tuned for that. Let's get into number 5 for Teddy Bridgewater. All right. Because I am an authentic person, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I really don't know if there is a perfect, seamless fit here for Teddy Bridgewater. The injury uncertainty scares me. The lack of real football reps during the regular season concerns me. But I'm going to give it a shot anyway. And be sure to come at me in the comments section if I am just sounding like a complete idiot, because many times YouTube commenters do that anyway. Denver checking in at number 5, and we could put Denver on many lists out there for free agent quarterbacks. Again, Talked about it with Case Keenum. Kirk Cousins is priority number one. And I think Teddy Bridgewater and John Elway making some sort of relationship together, I think it's possible. But the question for me is, does Elway want to risk the pickup of Teddy Bridgewater? Because we know who Elway is. He wants to win now. He looks at the situation with Denver and he sees a quality championship team, a championship defense, 2 quality wide receivers in Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, an offensive line that is likely to get better via draft and via free agency, a running back in C.J. Anderson that has shown very good flashes in recent years. It's just that hole at quarterback. And does Elway want to bring in a guy with a really bad injury in his history, cement him as the starter in week 1 of 2018, and then perhaps see the risk really unfold during the regular season? I think Teddy Bridgewater is far down on Denver's priority list. I think it's Kirk at number 1, Case at number 2, followed by Baker Mayfield via the draft, selecting at number 5 overall, and then at number 4, maybe Teddy Bridgewater. So Denver Broncos checking in at number 5. David in the comments section, Teddy would fit in Arizona. That's about it. Well, David, you must have some sort of crystal ball or something, or maybe you looked at my script. I don't even know. We got the Arizona Cardinals checking in at number 4 as a possibility for Teddy Bridgewater. I think it would be a really intriguing destination. Again, appreciate the comment there. You got David Johnson, talked about him with the Case Keenum reasoning, and I think Teddy Bridgewater, David Johnson, 1-2 punch, be pretty darn fun to watch. Actually, I think it'd be really good for the Cardinals fan base to see Bridgewater and Johnson coming back. And look, I think it'd be the feel-good story of the year in 2018 if both those two play really darn well. Both of them with grueling injuries, coming back, comeback players of the year, if you will, getting it done. So this is more likely than, say, the Denver Broncos, because I feel like the Cardinals have less options and leverage to grab a quarterback via free agency and via the draft. I already talked about how the Cardinals are selecting number 15 overall. Not an optimal spot to get a top-tier quarterback prospect. And then in terms of the salary cap, well, there are other teams that are in way better position in that regard. You got the Jets, the Browns, etc. All can really give free agent quarterbacks a blank check and say, all right, guys, what do you want? So where will Teddy Bridgewater play in 2018? Let me know in the comment section. So we got the Arizona Cardinals at number 4 as a potential for Teddy. And I said he would be fun to watch. Apparently, Jeremy disagrees. Did you just say Teddy is fun to watch? Yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, he can be an effective quarterback, and we haven't seen him in a couple of years, by the way, Jeremy. So, you know, who knows what we can expect in 2018, so I do understand your reasoning here, but I think he would be fun to watch. I think he'd be especially fun to watch in Arizona playing for Mike McCoy and with Larry Fitzgerald at wide receiver and David Johnson at running back. Just saying. But hey, to each his own. Appreciate the comment, and thank you for watching the show. Let's get into team number 3 here. The Cleveland Browns. So they are literally going to be in the running for anybody. Like, they are desperate. They do not want to trot out Deshaun Kaiser week 1, 2018 to be their starting quarterback. So I think it's likely they go Cousins or to the draft, of course, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, etc. But there's also the scenario where Cleveland could go quarterback, then Saquon, 1 and 4, and still go with a quarterback via free agency. So that would create some really fun storylines during training camp, right? Let's say Cleveland drafts Darnold, and then they grab Saquon at number 4, and then they sign Case Keenum or Kirk Cousins or Teddy Bridgewater. Talk about the storylines during training camp, OTAs, etc., in terms of the quarterback battles and then how well Saquon Barkley is playing in Cleveland's offensive system. I don't love the pairing here between Teddy Bridgewater and offensive coordinator Todd Haley. And again, like I said at the top of this segment, I'm not really sure if there is a perfect fit for Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's just going to have to be one of those scenarios where our team is going to have to basically make a leap of faith and say, all right, Teddy, I have faith. I think you can do it. And, of course, they're going to have to get some sort of insurance, whether it's a quarterback via the draft, etc. But I think it's going to have to be one of those deals. But I have Cleveland at number 3 here. I think Hugh Jackson will still give Deshaun Kaiser a chance to be the starter, but I'd expect a rookie QB and some sort of free agent to come in for Cleveland. Maybe it is Teddy Bridgewater, so the Browns are at number 3 here. Let's go to number 2, the Buffalo Bills. So my suspicion is the Bills will also look everywhere for quarterback options, Teddy Bridgewater included, and I think this could be a hot take, maybe a lukewarm take, but Teddy Bridgewater is an upgrade from Tyrod Taylor. I think he is a better quarterback than Tyrod. Tyrod has a very low ceiling. I think Teddy has a higher ceiling than Taylor. And look, the Buffalo Bills may not even have Tyrod on their roster by the time the 2018 regular season comes around. And signing Teddy won't mean the Bills are done either. I think they could use their draft capital to move up in that first round and grab Josh Rosen. And then you have a quarterback battle in OTAs and training camp between Teddy Bridgewater, the veteran, the feel-good story coming off the injury, and Josh Rosen, the guy that apparently isn't a great leader and evidently didn't want to play for the Cleveland Browns, and now refuting that report, of course. But it would be a fun storyline for Buffalo Bills fans out there, because I think either way, you're in good shape. I think Teddy Bridgewater would be a good quarterback for the Buffalo Bills because the situation is there. Kind of like with Case Keenum, the same logic. Good offensive line. You can run the football effectively with LaShawn McCoy. You got a good wide receiver in Kelvin Benjamin. Didn't show much last year, but I think he will improve. You have Charles Clay as well as tight end. He's a potential salary cap casualty. But I think Buffalo could be an interesting spot there for Teddy Bridgewater. So I think even a likely scenario would be Rosen and Teddy together as we head into OTAs and training camp. Stay tuned for that. But the Buffalo Bills check in at number 2. Let's go to number 1 now, the New York Jets. And let me say this. The Jets have a ton of work to do on offense, but I think Bridgewater would be a nice fit for offensive coordinator Jeremy Bates there. The Jets will be firmly in the Kirk Cousins hunt, and many teams will be, the Bills, Broncos, Cardinals, I go on. But I think the Jets, I mean, there's obviously the scenario where they lose out on Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins, and maybe they don't want to re-sign Josh McCown, so they bring in Teddy Bridgewater to be their guy, and maybe they draft a quarterback in that first round as well to kind of compete with Teddy. Look, no team is going to sign Teddy Bridgewater and say, okay, he's going to be our week 1 starter. It's not going to be a Kirk Cousins kind of situation. So a team that signs Teddy is likely to go with a quarterback in the draft too. You've probably picked up on that because I mentioned this a couple times with the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns, etc. So I got the Jets as the top spot. It's time for you to weigh in. Best destination for Teddy Bridgewater. Give me a heart for the Jets, a like for the Bills, laughing face for the Browns, and a wow face for the Denver Broncos. We'll hold up this reaction poll for a little bit here so everybody has a chance to get their votes in here. And if I missed out on a team, by the way, let me know in the comments section. Maybe people are buying in on the Cardinals. Hit me in the comments section if you're buying in on Arizona for Teddy Bridgewater's destination. So we'll see about Teddy. I think he is more unpredictable than, say, Case Keenum, because you have tape. You have a recency on Case because of his 2017 reps. For Teddy Bridgewater, yeah, the reps really aren't there. He showed up in that Cincinnati Bengals game very, very briefly, and that was more of a ceremonial kind of deal than anything else. It wasn't about really winning a football game or something like that, because the Vikings were in good position against the Bengals at the time. So it's easier to say where Case Keenum is going. I think it's harder to say where Teddy Bridgewater is headed, but the report is he is going to walk and sign with another team because the Vikings are not going to exercise the franchise tag on him and likely not re-sign him either. So the Minnesota Vikings are very much in the market for a quarterback. We'll see what happens with them, but that's the deal with Teddy Bridgewater. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Keep those comments flowing in. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. My fantastic producer, Harris Rubenstein, has been throwing up all of your comments throughout the program, so keep them coming. We have time to show some more throughout the show as well. So we'll see what happens with Teddy Bridgewater and Case Keenum. Travis chiming in. Pitt, Big Ben's back up for 1 year. Okay, all right, because I think, Travis, you're saying that Roethlisberger may retire after next season, and then you can bring in Teddy Bridgewater, kind of groom him behind Ben Roethlisberger, put him in as the starter in Week 1 in 2019. Hey, I like the logic. Jay chiming in, best fit the Jets, but Broncos may grab him. I think it all comes down to desperation, Jay. If the Jets and Broncos both miss out on KIRK and Case Keenum, your hands are kind of tied in terms of free agency. You either go Sam Bradford or Josh McCown. Like, will you do that? Probably not. So it'd be Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Bradford, really. So appreciate the comment, Jay. And let's check in with the final word now. So this whole Jerry Jones versus Roger Goodell thing is, well, crazy. So let's take a look. So Jerry Jones is expected to appeal the NFL's request for $2 million. So this is first reported by the New York Times that the NFL wants Jerry Jones and the Cowboys to pay upwards of $2 million in legal fees. So it's not a fine, it's a reimbursement of legal fees and resources used. So for what, you may ask? Well, used to prepare for a potential lawsuit from Jerry Jones, because you remember that swirling around the headlines that Jerry Jones was threatening to sue the NFL because of what is happening with the compensation committee and all that stuff. And also the resources utilized to defend Ezekiel Elliott's 6-game suspension. So that went on for many moons and many moons, right? And the NFL, of course, had to pay for all the legal resources and expenditures. And now the NFL says, all right, Jerry, all right, Cowboys, pay up, because you wasted our time with this whole Ezekiel Elliott situation, and you threw out some smoke about threatening to sue us and all of this. So the Washington the Washington Post came out with a report yesterday that Jones will fight this, and shocker alert, the saga goes on. So in a sense, we have a new novel in the series of Jerry Jones versus Roger Goodell, and this is going to go on and on and on, I think. And I think it's going to be a kind of a back and forth, somewhat like it was with the NFL and Ezekiel Elliott's camp. So which side are you on? Are you Team Roger or Team Jerry in all this? Or are you just hashtag team, let's get this over with and let's end this and, you know, talk about other stuff out there? It's kind of an interesting storyline, though, because there's really not a precedent here in terms of the NFL requesting for reimbursement of legal fees, at least to my knowledge. I don't know if there's any law students out there that, you know, have any thoughts about this, but Jay says, you already know my answer already. Yeah, I see the Cowboys hat right there, Jay. I think it's safe to say you're hashtag Team Jerry on that one. David, Jay, your owner destroys your team. Ooh, all right. So a little fire being thrown in the comments section. So Jay actually agrees. So it looks like there's some level ground on that. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, this whole Roger Goodell, Jerry Jones situation is really giving me a headache in a sense, because I really have never seen anything like it where the NFL or a professional league has been like, all right, reimburse us for your threat and reimburse us for your very legal appeal of the suspension of Ezekiel Elliott. And oh, by the way, the hearing that Jerry Jones has requested for will be led by one Roger Goodell, because Roger Goodell, according to the collective bargaining agreement, is essentially jury and executioner, right? He makes the decisions, and the chief arbitrator, if you want to put it that way. And so it's going to be really awkward if it actually goes down where Jerry Jones has to argue against Roger Goodell to Roger Goodell, because he's the chief guy who's like leading all of this. Really, really weird situation. So, I don't know. Let me know in the comments section. Are you Team Roger, Team Jerry? Mike chiming in. Jerry, put that money in that Salvation Army kettle Zeke jumped into. Hashtag Goodell. All right, so there you go. Mike throwing in his thoughts. Manuel All you Cowboys fans talk all that mess, how much money you got, now y'all begging for money. All right, interesting comment there. Appreciate you watching the show here, Manuel. Calvin, Jerry needs to sell the team. Hot take of the day on the Cam Rogers Show. Could Jerry Jones sell the Dallas Cowboys? We'll see about that. David, he's Team Roger. Appreciate the comment, David, and watching the show throughout the day here. And we'll see what happens in the next chapter of Team Roger versus Team Goodell, but it's quite a weird situation. And we actually went live on Chat Sports a couple days ago to kind of report on this, and Tom Downey did a great job of talking about it. And I think I've learned more about legal terms throughout this past offseason and the NFL season as well than any other time, especially because of the Ezekiel Elliott situation. But now with Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones going at it, yeah, we'll see. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show, episode 71 here on this Wednesday. I am Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I do want to let you all know there is a podcast version of the show too. How do you get it? Head on to chatsports.com/Cam Show. You can download if you are an iOS user. It's a video podcast, but you can also just listen to the audio version too. So chatsports.com/Cam Show. Download, subscribe. Please leave a review. It really makes the podcast look a lot better when you leave a review out there. 5 stars would be preferred, but you know, anything would be great. So we do appreciate all the support here on the show. A few minutes left on the program. I do want to recap the listicle here of the top destinations for Case Keenum and Teddy Bridgewater in case you guys perhaps jumped on the show at the midway point of that segment. So let's talk about Case Keenum first. Here are my 5 destinations in order. Arizona, number 1. It's going to happen. Book it. Pencil it in. Actually, pen it in. Buffalo Bills, number 2. Denver Broncos at number 3. The New York Giants at number 4. And the New Orleans Saints at number 5. My logic with the Saints is not because Drew Brees is a free agent in that he's going to go walk and play for another team. He's going to stay with the Saints. But Chase Daniel, the backup there, is a free agent. And it'll be interesting to see if he would rather go ahead and test the open market, in which case the Saints would be in need of a backup quarterback. So maybe Case Keenum goes to New Orleans. Or Keenum reunites with Pat Shurmur and the New York Giants. 1 through 3 obviously are the more likely scenarios. Denver is very much in the hunt for a quarterback. They don't want to start Paxton Lynch or Brock Osweiler or Trevor Siemian. In fact, Siemian is on the trade block, according to several reports out there. Buffalo would be an interesting pick. I talked about how the scenario for Buffalo is really good because for Case Keenum to be successful, that is, because of the offensive line and the run game and a good wide receiving core that at least will get better, especially via the draft and free agency. And then the Buffalo Bills have a pretty darn solid secondary and front line too. So I think it's all there for Case Keenum. And then Arizona, number 1, Mike McCoy. I think he'd be a really good pairing for him. McCoy, of course, the offensive coordinator there. All right, let's go to Teddy Bridgewater. My top destinations, 1 through 5. New York Jets, Buffalo Bills, Cleveland Browns, Arizona Cardinals, Denver Broncos. I have no idea if there is a perfect fit for Teddy Bridgewater. And in fact, there may be kind of a team that comes out of nowhere that signs this guy as a backup and perhaps uses him in 2019. Pittsburgh Steelers, for example, if Ben Roethlisberger retires, who's going to be their starting quarterback in 2019, right? But I think the Jets would be an interesting one with offensive coordinator Jeremy Bates there. I think he's a really good OC, somebody not a lot of people talk about out there. Buffalo, I talked about how there's a good situation around that potential quarterback, whoever goes there, because of the surrounding talent. Cleveland would be a tough one. I don't know if Teddy would pair well with offensive coordinator Todd Haley, but we'll see. Arizona, Denver, also possibilities. All right, folks, we're wrapping up the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Again, get the podcast version of the show, chatsports.com/Cam Show. Ask me any questions in the comments section as well. I'll be sure to answer throughout the coming days. I'm on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I will see you Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care.